I clocked about 37 hours into Final Fantasy VII by the time the credits rolled, and it was one hell of a ride from first minute to last. In the first few hours, all of my expectations were met. The Final Fantasy of my dreams was finally in my hands. At the 10+ hour range, my objectivity started to kick in, and I started seeing the flaws. 20 hours in, my opinion of the game went to an unexpected place. And then by the time the credits rolled, I wasn't sure where I stood with this remake. Sounds pretty ominous, right? Good. Let's begin. The first few hours of Final Fantasy VII were emotional. No other way to say it. After the extravagant introduction, I came to a familiar scene where Cloud first runs into Aerith. Almost like poetry, just as she offers you a flower, we get a beautiful close-up shot and the first few notes of her timeless theme begins to play. And before I knew it, tears were running down my stupid face. Big, fat, manly man tears. Like so many, this is a game I grew up with, a game that shaped my early years and influenced so many of my tastes, not just in gaming, but in art and music. And to see these scenes that I know like the back of my hand updated so beautifully is frankly emotional. The whole game is like this. Every moment you remember from the Midgar section of the original, no matter how small, is here, reimagined and elevated.
What? You don't remember? What about the flowers?
Oh, the flower girl.
The characters you know and love are all here, true to their originals, but now they are more fleshed out with greater focus on their emotional through lines. This is still very much a Final Fantasy narrative in all of its anime stylings, but there's more maturity to the writing, bringing with it a lot more weight to the story. It's not all serious though. Much of the humor found in the original has been brought back too. What was goofy and corny in the original game is goofier and cornier in this one, but the levity is welcome and never overstays. In fact, Cloud, who is often stern and serious, has some of the funniest moments and one-liners in the game.
Oh my god, that makeup! And that dress!
Nailed it, I know, thank you. Moving on.
Story and characters are some of the core things a Final Fantasy has to nail in order to be successful, and despite a few interesting tweaks, it's hard to imagine a lot of longtime fans being disappointed with how most of this remake story turns out. Now, what's just as important, or more important to Final Fantasy, is its battle system, and I'm happy to report this game does not disappoint. The battle system of FF7 Remake follows the philosophy of KISS, meaning keep it simple, stupid. The new real-time combat is fast and punchy, with blocking and dodging being key to some of the more aggressive fights. The easy comparator is the Kingdom Hearts series, but this game could easily stand with some of the better hack and slashes out there. The backbone of all of this is the classic ATB system. There are two ATB meters at the bottom right of your screen that fill up either by the normal flow of time or by the player's attacks filling it the quickest. When one or both of these meters are full, the player can open the familiar command menu, which slows the combat down. Here, the player can spend their ATB bars on abilities, items, or magic. They can also issue orders to other characters or just outright switch to them if needs be. This system does a lot to give the game its tactical depth and allows the player to make thoughtful plans and strategies. The stagger system from Final Fantasy XIII has returned and fits this battle system like a glove. Each enemy has an orange status meter that fills when attacked. When the meter is full, this will stagger the enemy, leaving them completely vulnerable. Each enemy has their own requirements for having this stagger bar fill, and half of the fun is figuring out an enemy's weakness and exploiting it. Each character also plays uniquely and has their own specialties. For example, while Cloud may be the main damage dealer, Barret's Gatling gun is the best for most airborne enemies. Aerith also works great for long-range attacks, but still offers the best support magic and abilities. As battles get more complicated, the more you'll have to switch between characters and utilize their unique abilities. So, all in all, while the battle system now requires more fast reflexes, the game still engages your mind just like any other Final Fantasy. And the cherry topper of it all is that it all looks and sounds incredible.
I don't need to tell you what this is, right?
The Materia System has returned completely intact, and just like in the original, allows you to customize your party's magical abilities and battle readiness in just about any way you see fit. So if you want Tifa to be your support healer and party buffer, you can do that while having Cloud focus exclusively on offensive magic attacks. There's also an expanded focus on command and support materia, allowing your party AI to pull off more complicated maneuvers. So if you want Barrett to attack your target with fire after you physically hit it, you can do that with synergy materia. Weapons are now a more central element, with each character's individual weapons able to be upgraded, granting your characters additional stat buffs. What's nice is that now, instead of going from weapon to weapon, discarding whatever was obsolete, the game makes you focus on nurturing each of your weapons and using the right one for the right battle, which is a nice change of pace.
When spring comes, I'm leaving town. I'm going to Midgar.
Indeed, my initial hours in Final Fantasy VII were everything I could have hoped for. The story had me hooked, the battle system was fun, the presentation was tear-inducing, and on top of that, it had actual dungeons, complicated and time-consuming, just like the old games, and a ton of boss battles that actually challenged me, something that was woefully missing from 15. But then, by hour 10, some things were starting to annoy me.
So, you make nice with everyone?
Much as I could, all things considered.
One of the first issues I noticed were the graphics. Now, saying that Final Fantasy VII's visuals are any less than outstanding is crazy talk. I mean, the character models are exceptional and the environments feel so well composed, with Unreal 4's advanced lighting system making some scenes look borderline photorealistic. But it's when you start to slow down and examine the environments more closely that you start to notice a lot of low quality models and textures that look outright bad. It's most apparent during dialogue sequences with NPCs, which themselves can look pretty rough. I think this was done as a compromise to keep the game's performance up, because what's probably the most impressive thing about the presentation is how consistent and silky the frame rate is throughout the whole game. It never staggers. Plus, because you move so fast through environments anyways, you're unlikely to really notice this stuff. But it can still distract you and take you out of the moment. My next issue is with the game's camera. The camera during battle is way too punched in, making it hard to see what's fully happening. What's worse is that if you happen to be fighting in a more cramped space, the camera has a habit of getting caught on the level geometry, making things even more confusing. You can pull the camera out more in the options menu, but it still doesn't fully solve the problem.
Heard there's a merc that'll take on any monster. You the man?
There's also the side quests. Now, in the original game, getting through the Midgar portion took about 6 to 8 hours, but since this remake is upwards of 40, Square had to put a lot of padding into this game. One way they did that was through side quests. You run into side quests in the game's multiple hub areas, and there's quite a few of them. They usually involve hunting down a monster or performing a fetch quest. The side quests aren't bad. In fact, I'd say they were on par with other Final Fantasy side quests. Plus, gun to my head, I'd rather have side quests than mindless grinding. But compared to the rest of the content, they are probably the most underwhelming part of the game. And when you start doing a lot of these in the middle act, they kind of start to drag the game down. Luckily, what salvages the side quests is that for starters, none of them are all that grueling to complete, and narrative-wise, they actually do a good job of acquainting you with the various sectors of Midgar and introduce some fun side characters. If the side quests didn't have these, then the game would have been a slog. The game world is also fairly linear. I mention this for anybody who loved the openness of 15 and hated the tube world of 13. Now, 7 is nowhere near as egregious as 13, but the game is basically on a straight line from start to finish. I didn't take this to be that much of an issue though. It actually matches the junky, claustrophobic nature of the Midgar slums. Plus, once again, 7 actually does a great job of fleshing out its world. So while it's still on a straight line, it's not a boring straight line. By hour 20, the thought finally crossed my mind. Oh my god, this might be better than the original. You see, I may have had the expectation that 7 Remake would be very good, but I never fathomed it would surpass the original. But believe me when I say, the last third of this game is just plain fire. For starters, the game just keeps upping the ante in terms of sheer spectacle. There are so many times I would just be staring at my TV with my jaw dropped going, "Are you kidding me? I can't even believe I'm playing this right now." A lot of the boss fights in the later parts of the game are just visual madness. I mean, once upon a time, a Final Fantasy cutscene and a battle screen were two totally different entities. In FF7 Remake, cinematics and battles exist in perfect harmony, both seamlessly flowing into each other and never taking anything away from the player experience. Years ago, Square said they wanted the battles in Final Fantasy to feel like the action scenes in Advent Children, and this is the closest they've ever come. And the Materia system only keeps expanding and getting deeper and deeper with more and more battle options opening up to the player. You might get away with just hacking and slashing for a while, but at a certain point in this game, your success only comes from getting into the nitty-gritty of the battle system and really understanding the weaknesses and attack patterns of your enemies. It's so satisfying. And where I feared the side quests were the only thing padding out the game, I was pleasantly surprised to find entirely new scenarios introduced that were an absolute blast to play through and fit well within the game. Oh, and the music. Oh my god, the music. Every Final Fantasy has some epic music production behind it, but this game goes absolutely crazy with it, and it's great. You can expect rearrangements of the classic themes, but then there's remix upon remix around every corner you turn. Boss battles have 4 or 5 different variations of their themes, all seemingly synced up with the action of the game. The game even has the balls to start dropping beats in some of the battle themes. And it actually works pretty well. And if you think that's impressive, there's also 31 collectible songs in the game, all consisting of covers of the original soundtrack. Look, if there's a way to tie all this rambling up, it's to say that at some point in this game, I felt like a teenager again. Staying up late, eating junk food, and totally mesmerized in the world of Final Fantasy. It's a feeling I haven't had in a very long time, and it's one I missed. And for me, I think Square recaptured the magic of the original and might have managed to make it a little better. When I hit hour 37 and the credits rolled, did I still think Final Fantasy VII Remake was better than the original? The answer to that is no. For starters, the game isn't finished yet. It's pretty wild to think that this first part feels like such a complete Final Fantasy game, and yet maybe takes up a third of the entire experience. So I'll have to wait and see how the next chapter of this epic pans out before I can really make any judgments. Also, there is the ending. Now, I'm not going to outright spoil anything, but I am going to throw up a spoiler warning. If you plan on playing this game, I would suggest hopping to this point in the video. Essentially, the ending is a wholly reimagined scene compared to the original that makes some interesting choices with the story of Final Fantasy VII. People are going to have a wide range of reactions to this, and I'm sure these choices will be hotly debated in the months to come. For me, my reaction was of indifference. It was hard for me to put my finger on whether this was good or bad because I honestly have to see how the next installments play out. But personally, ending the game feeling indifferent is a stark contrast to the pure joy I had in the 30+ hours before that, so I can't help but feel a little bummed out. It also didn't help that the end features a boss fight that I didn't really think was totally necessary. But does this diminish the amazing experience I had coming up to this point? No, not at all. I mean, you can nitpick so-so side quests, graphical cut corners, and confusing endings, but at some point you just have to sit back and applaud the work Square has done here. They really put their all into this game. This is the next-gen Final Fantasy we all hoped they would make, and now it's finally here. This is not like 13 or 15 where maybe the battle system is okay but the world is boring, or maybe the world is well done but the battle system is kind of whatever. No, this is the real deal. A Final Fantasy that is not only a jaw-dropping spectacle but also a solid RPG, just like it used to be back in the day. This is an excellent remake that should not be missed by anyone who loves the Final Fantasy series. It will be an interesting wait for Final Fantasy VII Part 2, but if it turns out as good as this, it will be a wait well worth it. But what do you guys think? What were your reactions to this remake? Let me know in the comments. I'm interested to discuss this one. Also, very soon I'll be dropping another video covering my thoughts and theories on the ending, so make sure you ring that bell so you are among the first to see it. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. I drop videos weekly, Thursdays at 2 o'clock. And I just want to take a moment to thank my new and current subscribers. You guys have made this an absolute joy and make me want to work at this even harder. Thank you very much. Until next time, I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this review of Final Fantasy VII. Stay safe out there.